Welcome to
Tom and Jesse Podcast. Everything relevant in the news.
Local, national, and international.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great Wednesday 4 of March. After a Super Tuesday, we greet you, we welcome you to the Tom and Jesse Podcast. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Jesse. Great to be here.
It's an amazing day that we just passed in regards of the democracy of this country, in regards of the Super Tuesday. Tell me a little bit about what was going on last night.
Well, it was indeed a Super Tuesday for Joe Biden because he won 10 of the 14 states up for grabs last night. Bernie Sanders, who had been the presumptive leader before that, had a tough night, taking only his home state of Vermont, as well as Utah, Colorado, and the big haul in California. But in a proportional election, the delegates are handed out depending on how many votes you have relative to your opposition, what percentage you have. He did pretty well. He got about 71 or 2 delegates to 21 for Biden, but it was not a good day for Bernie overall.
It was a great comeback for Biden, right?
It was a tremendous comeback. He was given his political last rites only a week ago, and he kind of surprisingly received just 3 days ago, the support of Pete Buttigieg, the young mayor of South Bend, who dropped out, and from Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, who also dropped out. They supported him. They staged a rally Monday night before Super Tuesday in Texas, and they also included Beto O'Rourke, who previously had been running in the race, the representative from Texas.
It was like a reunion of the candidates, but now supporting Biden.
That's right, and they formed around Biden, and we know now that they created tremendous momentum. And this was perfect timing for Biden because he was coming after a miserable performance in both New Hampshire and Iowa. He had finished a distant second in Nevada, so everyone knew he had to win Saturday in South Carolina. And he did. It was not a surprise that he won, but it was amazing by how much he won.
Yeah. So in regards of the delegates, I see the information that you provide. Biden is leading by 467 delegates so far, 75 ahead of Sanders, which he is going with 392. And surprisingly, you know what? It was kind of surprise for me that the support for Elizabeth Warren, fell down to 51 delegates and Bloomberg 44.
Right. It was a horrible night for Elizabeth Warren because she had one of the ultimate bummers in politics, and that is when you not only lose your home state, but you get routed and you finished in third place.
Yeah, that was...
Biden won, Bernie was second, and Warren in her home state was a very distant third. And regarding the South, where Biden was known to be strong because of his backing with the African-American voters, just working from the Atlantic Ocean to the West, he took the following: Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And this reminds me almost of a military victory. He set up really what will perhaps be an impenetrable electoral line. And I don't think that Bernie is going to win anything south of there, and he may not win anything or not much in the states adjacent to that to the north.
Yeah, and you know what? It's very tight race between Biden and Sanders, but as you know, second place. It's not leading. So even if the margin is so small.
Right. Well, the momentum is certainly very much in Biden's favor. Of course, we could say a week ago it was in Bernie's favor, but a lot of big things have happened since then. Just very small amounts of delegates were available until last night, and Biden delivered big time. He has the aforementioned support of Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, as well as Beto O'Rourke. And just within the last few hours, Mayor Bloomberg, former Mayor Bloomberg of New York, has announced that he is withdrawing his billions of dollars from the race, at least for himself, and he is backing Joe Biden. And I think we can assume that a lot of money, not as much as he would have invested in himself, but plenty of money will be available for the Democrats. Donald Trump was tweeting very inappropriate insults of Mini Mike, as he calls him. He has to insult everyone. And I think Bloomberg will, even though he's not the candidate anymore, will be highly motivated to help beat Trump and his vast technological empire, giving data about all sorts of things, will be brought to bear for the Democrats.
That's right.
Bloomberg's technological empire is said to be more sophisticated than that of the Democratic National Committee, for example.
Wow, that will be helpful for Biden. And, surprisingly, because I thought that Sanders will dominate, all the states yesterday on the Super Tuesday night.
Well, he's never really been strong in the South. He just doesn't get it with black voters. For whatever reason, they just don't mesh, whereas he's very strong with Latino voters, and he's strong with the young. And even though Bernie's quite an old fellow himself, age 78, he does not do well with older people. So if you look at the results from age 45 and under, Biden did not do well. Bernie did, but 45 and up, smoking Joe Biden was the leader.
Yep. Yeah, so it's really interesting, this race, and we soon. Do you believe that Elizabeth Warren will announce her not defeat, but that stopping on going on the race?
Well, number one, I certainly hope that Elizabeth Warren will do the right thing and announce her withdrawal. There is no conceivable path to her being nominated. There is not even a path to her being competitive at this point. After all, again, she was routed in her home state, finishing not second but third. So in order to avoid, I think, an embarrassing series of defeats, she needs to step aside. People who had at least as much support as she did, Buttigieg and Amy, have stepped out.
Do you think that she might support Sanders?
I think it's possible. Now, she has accused Sanders of telling her privately, and they had this spat during one of their debates 2 or 3 weeks ago. She said, "Bernie, you said in private that a woman should not be running for president because she can't be elected." Sanders has denied it. So there is some tension between them. But there's tension between Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. So people put that aside. Back in 1960, Lyndon Johnson had been dominating the Senate of the United States for 10 years. And Jack Kennedy was a young, handsome, playboy style of senator who wasn't nearly as accomplished legislatively as Lyndon Johnson. When they ran against each other. In those days, it was the backroom kind of politics. But anyway, Kennedy emerged, and Johnson agreed to be his vice president. But they hated each other. And so, I mean, a lot of alliances can be made. And I doubt there's the kind of enmity between Warren and Sanders that there was between Kennedy and Johnson. So I think they can work it out and should.
Very interesting. So one of the things that I believe is that Democrats gotta produce a superstar in order to defeat Trump.
Well, it's going to be hard to produce a superstar because they can have a man who probably qualifies as a star, Joe Biden. But as we've noted in previous podcasts, Joe is slowed down a little bit. He has some gaffes. Last night, in his victory speech in Los Angeles, he had a woman to his right and a woman to his left. They were slightly behind him. They were a little bit out of his line of sight, but he points to his right and said, "And here's my sister." And that woman starts shaking her head, and then he points to his left, and here's my wife. In fact, he had flip-flopped that. To his right was his wife, and to his left was his sister. So that's the kind of gaffe, physical and or mental, that Joe has been bedeviled by as he's gotten older. And he was, in a presidential sense, was not a smooth candidate even when he was younger. So he has been known as, quote-unquote, a gaffe machine. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yep.
He's got a lot of momentum and a lot of support, and a lot of people in this country, I would say even a small majority, would prefer someone other than Donald Trump be elected president in
That's right.
November.
Do you think that President Barack Obama is not messing with any Democrat candidate until that one emerges to support him?
Well, I think Obama has certainly been quite reticent about supporting his old buddy and vice presidential colleague, Joe Biden. Biden, no doubt, was hoping for that support. I think he will now get it explicitly. Probably behind the scenes, Obama has been talking to people like Buttigieg and Klobuchar and saying, hey, look, you've got to get on board. There will be places for you in the administration. Biden almost certainly has said, and he said it publicly now, he said, hey, come and be part of our administration. Same applies to Beto O'Rourke. That's part of the deal. I mean, if you drop out now and don't cause any more trouble and give me your support,
and come
you
back
can be on the team, and you can be Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, White House Chief of Staff, something better than,
as we call it, a good bone.
Yes, that's right. So I imagine Barack Obama has been reminding them of that, and I expect Obama to step up and say, okay, I'm backing Joe Biden.
Yeah, so I hope this race takes a momentum, and most of the people that has not been registered, especially the Latino community, that it's kind of low in voting. I hope that they realize, and we as a community take action in put our voice to be heard through the vote.
Well, absolutely. It's up to Latino politicians, and there are many of them in California and elsewhere in the nation, and there are community leaders such as yourself who need to step up and say, look, do you want 4 more years of Donald Trump, or do you want a Democrat who's going to be far more open-minded and sensitive to your needs?
That's right. So we are spreading the word, making consciousness about the importance of registering and voting, and be heard, because I don't think there is a more powerful weapon that we can use as our vote, to be heard, to be say, I am against what your political principles, or I am in favor of what you are proposing to our community. And I think voting is the best way that we can do it.
Absolutely. If you are eligible to vote and don't vote, then don't complain about the behavior of people who are elected to office.
That's right. So I really want to thank you for this incredible information that we just shared, Tom. I hope that people like it, and if you like, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tom and Jesse Podcast TV, and share, subscribe, and put the little bell in order to receive the latest information or podcast that we have available.
Right, and be ready next Wednesday, because next Tuesday, the day before, there are more primaries. We'll have more commentary, and we'll see if Biden can maintain his momentum or if Bernie can recapture his momentum.
That's right. So thank you, everyone. Please subscribe to our channel. Look us on Facebook also, and Big Jesse Portillo, and Studio72Radio.com. And also check it out through my website, GeorgeThomasClark.com. That's GeorgeThomasClark.com. All of this is linking the Jesse and Tom and Jesse Portillo web podcast to the YouTube channel.
YouTube channel.
Correct. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon. And thank you for being part of this podcast.
Okay.
Welcome to Tom and Jesse Podcast. Everything relevant in the news.
Local, national, and international.